Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, the might of the old city rises behind the four families, sweeping into the new city hungering for blood. But what challenges face those who remain in the old city? Find out next on the Seventh Valkyrie. The Pit. At the heart of the old city, the Pit and all its establishments were full that night. But despite the food, lights, and music, there was no celebration. The food was emergency rations. The lights came from the cook fires and pipes of families and the elderly. And the music came from what small instruments could be carried across the back, played to and for those who could not fight and had to be ready to flee with everything important to them. On average, the free people were less obsessed with things than the Eterans tended to be, which made that an easier ask, especially with the shadow of the Eterans' festival attack still looming large. But across the encampments, spirits were still relatively high, as stories raced about the battle in the new city, and with every change in the tunes, a handful of men and women had disappeared to join in with the war effort. Glancing out across the pit from the rooftop of Velvet and squinting towards the new city, Pores couldn't spot the columns of smoke supposedly rising there, but the stories of Old City forces routing the Eterans did seem to hold water. When the Machine King had emerged in his dark battlecraft, and word had come back to the Old City of a night-black warrior and legions of Eteran turncoats, well, the rumors and speculation were enough to make you believe that this was the second coming of Apostolos. Pores surveyed the pit again, running through their orders. If word came from the front line, the security force overseeing the pit could have the remaining families and evacuees up into the hills long before the Eterans could make it across the river. Focusing on that kept Pores from worrying too much about the rest of it. The door flew open, and Pores turned, initially startled, only to realize it was just May, walking swiftly up to him. "Man," Pores said, bowing his head. "What brings you here?" "Well, we've got to move quickly," May said. "New orders." "Is everything okay out there?" "More than okay, apparently. Families have passed along that our reserve force is to move up to the bridge and restore it from this side to flank the Eterans." "They want to restore the bridge? Are you sure?" "Your guess is as good as mine. I'm hearing that this will be a great victory, a total victory, and all the families want to push on and take it back, all of Nazarene. I think they're planning to torch the Eteran half straight to the ground, let all of their forces of nature run wild, and return the entirety of the new city to the earth." Pores was silent and stepped away from the edge of the roof. "Ma'am." He looked over his shoulder and lowered his voice. "Do I have your permission to speak freely?" "Ah, of course, Pores. Sorry, I had already checked for listeners. I didn't mean to feel that you were put into a hard situation." No, it's okay. Haven't we always said that restoring the bridge would be suicide? Especially after an open attack on Edera? We'd be leaving ourselves open to a huge counterattack. The four families seem serious about returning the new city to the earth. They're saying they're going to destroy the walls and the roads and set the whole thing to the flame and then rebuild it from the land. I do not know much more, but they say they will hold all of Nazarene and make it a haven for freelanders for generations to come. And at the same time cement the four families as rulers of all free peoples north of the World Scar. May nodded. A welcome side effect to them, I'm sure. What do the other pit leaders think? They are a mixed bag. Aroth is thinking about how much money we could make. Frida is torn between the fire in their belly and the desire to protect what we've got. The Myla just say that they'll follow the orders of the families, and Rene is off leading the Erasmus force. And what do you think? I'm not thinking, I'm taking action. Orders are orders from the four families, whether they come in the form of a request or a demand. So, we're just headed to war. He uneasily stepped back towards the edge of the rooftops, where he could see down to the square below, where the sick, the elderly, and the non-combatants waited for direction. No, we are not just heading to war. Orders are orders, but we still have freedom in how we execute them. If that bridge goes into place and the Edrins somehow counterattack, there will be nothing we can do to protect our people. Everyone will be in danger, so anyone who can't fight, or won't fight, it makes no difference to me, is to evacuate. Up into the hills, at least as far as when the bells first rang. Everyone else, and the reserve force, we take the bridge. Porus nodded. I'm no expert on warcraft, but that seems like a good plan. Well, I came up with it myself, and I want you to lead the evacuation. You don't harbor any lingering youthful rage, do you? Porus shook his head. For decades, the fire in my belly has only been to keep my wife warm. Then we will start our evacuation right now. May lifted a hand to her mouth and whistled a complex bird song out across the pit, which was echoed by section leaders and officers across the square. As May turned and headed for the stairs, Porus close behind, the crowd in the pit was already moving. At times, the fierce individualism of the Freelanders was mistaken for laziness or stupidity, but once again May was reminded exactly how untrue that was. By the time she had reached the bottom floor of Velvet, meals had been devoured, bowls and cutlery cleaned and stored, and even cook fires had been breathed in by the firewakers, who would save the energy and the wood that remained. The crowd was still in high spirits. Those who could walk carried what they had to. Those who moved slowly mounted animals or rode on the backs of family members, while daisy chains of messages kept everyone heading in the right direction. Families were grouped such that each unit had the gifts and talents to survive off the lands for months, but right now that felt like a distant possibility. May had not expected, however, to find Waver up and out of bed, perched atop a balcony on one of the narrow streets leading out of the pit. Like nothing had changed, he was directing traffic with his charming smile, his deep, welcoming voice, and his remaining arm. He was in the middle of a one-handed flourish of aquatic display to cheer up a dour young woman, who was probably frustrated she hadn't been allowed into the fight, however foolish that instinct was, when May approached. Shouldn't you be in bed? Or rather headed for the hills? I thought it was clear that the wounded were to head out of town. Well, since my injury doesn't prevent me from helping out here, I figured I didn't quite qualify. May opened her mouth, protective instincts flaring, and then shut it. Well, I appreciate the help. When we get people out through the city, they're to head for their previous escape routes. If things turn bad, the scouts should be able to tell well in advance, and their orders are to disperse out into the western expanse or flee down the coast if by some means the city falls. Edra might take this place, but they will not take any more of our people. If the city falls? Waver lowered his voice. I thought we were winning, May. We are, but if you prepare for the worst, you are often pleasantly surprised. Well, fingers. One set of fingers crossed. Waver laughed, but May could hear the pain that was being soothed by his humor. Waver was resilient, but anyone would take time to get used to a lost limb. Unfortunately, May didn't have the time to deal with those kinds of things right now. I'm okay, May. Or, at least I will be. Sorry, you have your shark mother face on. I could tell you were worried. It appears that I am not quite so good at poker as I once was. May smiled, but something was still bothering Waver. He opened his mouth and then closed it, and then finally opened it again. May, have you seen BC? Do you know if she's going to be okay? Weva, BC will be fine. Are you sure? She's not over there, is she? She may be. But before you get worried, let us remind each other who we are speaking of, especially now that you know of her secret. I know, but for me, is there any way that you could check? May instinctively reached out with her perception, as she had done a dozen times already this evening. But again, the picture came out far too crowded and hazy to discern what was really happening. Weva, there's just no way to pick her up from here. Her eyes were closed as she tried to pick out a BC-sized gap in the colors and shapes on the wind. Even for me, even for the best sense tracker on the planet, it would be a long shot. A single individual veteran in that city? It's all noise. I'll keep looking, but... Waver started to chime in, intending to be helpful, but then stopped, almost laughing at himself. His sense was essentially non-existent. It would be like a fish offering tips to a bird because it knew how to jump. Even worse, at this point he might disrupt her concentration. So Waver shut his mouth and waited. But as the seconds turned into a minute, and then 1 minute turned into 2, and still May stood with her eyes closed, Waver became concerned. And just as the second minute turned to the third, May's eyes snapped open and she gasped. I need to go. Right now. I need to get to the bridge. Is everything okay? No, it is not. The energy coming from... I sensed BC, and she needs my help before it's too late. I thought you said that she'd be fine. How is she in danger now? I am not so worried about her as I am about everybody else. I have never been able to sense BC at this distance before. Not like this. Are you talking about her power? What is that? I spent the entire past 3 years knowing her, and I didn't know she had a gift. No one did. That is because BC does not have a gift. What dwells within her is something far more ancient, far more primal than even the gifts themselves. Perhaps older than time itself, I do not know, but I do know that she needs me now. Without someone to wake her, I don't know what will happen, and I do not know that she does either. Waver stood tall. What can I do to help? You continue doing what you are doing, and make sure that she has a home to come back to. With that, May snorted out in frustration and jumped clean to the next rooftop, landing on all fours, turning back to nod at Waver, and then leaping again into the darkness. Hey there! If you're hearing this, it means you're listening to the public version of this episode. I appreciate you taking the time and your interest in the series. It really helps the algorithm, it helps us grow. But if you are enjoying the show, maybe take a look over at our Patreon. We have uncut versions of the early episodes, access to new chapters before they're released for the general public, and you can shape the future of the series by deciding on new merch drops, bonus content, and more. You can get started for free at patreon.com/Seventh Valkyrie. That's patreon.com/7THVALKYRIE. Hope to see you there.